I was born and raised until my 20th year. I lived in Harlan County, Kentucky. I grew up in a little town called Lynch. U.S. Steel bought 18,000 acres around the mountain, and they cordoned it off because it was their gated community. You could not get into Lynch, Kentucky, but one way, and it was through the company's gate, which was on the state-owned highway, because if you didn't have any business in that town, they didn't want you in that town. When I was growing up, the company owned the company store, and you went to that company store and you could buy everything from a safety pin to a car. And in fact, the company was so well versed at this type of economic dependency is that they printed their own money. It was called script. And you worked for the company, you lived in the company's house. The company owned the electricity that came into your house. It was company town.
U.S. Steel came to Lynch in 1917 simply because the United States was involved in World War I and the need for steel was at an all-time high. So U.S. Steel sent a surveying crew to Harlan County, Kentucky. Well, what they were looking for was a highly volatile coal that could be used for coking. And of course, coke is what's put into the smelting process with iron ore to produce steel.
Now, just so you'll know, we'll be going not just through the mine, but back in time. This mine opened in 1917.
Really what they envisioned here was a coal camp, the likes of which the world had never seen, and that's exactly what they built here. Lynch, at one point in time, this used to be the largest company-owned coal camp in the world. But Portal 31 behind us, that's the crown jewel of all U.S. Steel operations. That was the biggest mine that they had. It was also the most productive.
Around the time that I was born, in the late mid-40s, the number of coal miners began to decline precipitously by 1950. They didn't need as many people to mine coal. It used to be mined with a pick and a shovel and some dynamite, and they would go to what they would call the head of the coal, drill a hole, put the dynamite in it, go back that way and say, "Fire in the hole!" Boom. Then somebody else would go in and shovel it onto a car. They averaged 16 tons a day, that's what they said. Well, while they were doing that, Andrew Carnegie and his research and development people said, we need to figure out ways to mine coal more efficiently, saying, let's make a machine that does what they do. In fact, one of the first ones they made was called a joy loader. Isn't that something? A joy loader. And my father got a job running another type of machine called a continuous miner. And it was a $3 million machine that was 75 feet long that literally just ate the coal off the side of the mountain. Just boom, 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 boom. Continuously, 24 hours a day. And Dad got that job and he said, boys, I'm gonna make $100 a day now, probably. Yeah. He said, but the only problem is this machine does the work of 300 other boys.
So Eastern Kentucky is definitely a coal-producing region, and that has historically and traditionally been the economy of this place. But really, we've seen a shift in that, as the coal industry has really started to precipitously decline since around 2012. And really, if we look at the history of coal, really since about the 1950s, the employment in the industry really has gone down over time as mechanization has gone up.
At the present time, the mechanization of mining, the continuous mining machines that was mining coal for the last 35 years back to the mid-70s, well, now those are no longer the main source of mining. They have now decided the best way to get at these seams of coal now is to mine it from the top. So you do something called mountaintop removal, so that now what used to be high mountains in southern West Virginia have been lowered by 300 and 400 feet, or 1,000 feet, in fact, as mountaintop removal has become the most efficient and most productive method of mining coal. I suppose the next step is to look at what do we see in terms of Appalachia's transition from being totally dependent upon coal mining. And that's the greatest challenge I think we have in the mountains today, in the mountains of the Southern Appalachia. What do we do next? Particularly when you have people who for 150 years have never done anything else.
You know, when I was growing up, U.S. Steel was still here. When they sold out, Arch Mineral came in, it was still really good because a lot of people were working, it was a union mine. When those companies leave here, it just decimated this place. There's not been any other type of industry to come in here and take the place of coal. Coal was king. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It ran the show here in the entire county. Coal is not coming back, at least to the way that it used to be. I think there's a lot of people starting to understand that now. So we've got to do something else.
What happened that was really fascinating to me in the last, probably just over the last 5 or 6 years, is a realization for all of us that the coal industry, while not completely gone, is not ever going to be what we do here. What will be our future, and what happened when that realization sort of came to be for all of us, was then we have an opportunity to define what's next. What is it that we can do that in the 21st century, where young people go and see the world, what can we do to make sure that we're part of that world they want to see? Because what we've discovered is when we can bring young people here, when we can bring them here and they can feel what we have here in this region, what we have going on, that's what makes people stay. And we've seen it over and over and over again. Young people from Appalachia Service Project, young people from Vista, young people from AmeriCorps, Teach for America, young people who just come here to explore or ride through their bike or hike the Appalachian Trail, come through here and they say, I could live there. We want to build the places that don't just make people say, I could live there, but that say people, I want to live there. I want to be there because there I can be a part of something bigger than myself. So that's our goal.